This is RangerCast, episode 27, recorded on Thursday, April 25th, 2024. In this episode, Hasbro throws up their hands, Power Rangers comics move towards their next chapter, and exciting tokusatsu releases coming down the pipe. Alright, this is RangerCast. As always, I am Tyler, better known as Weirdo Volto, and I am joined by
Josh, aka Crimson Sooners, aka in this household, we do not skip the intro.
So we know there's obviously big news in the fandom this week about Hasbro and the future of the franchise. We will get to that later because we want to keep you listening up until then. First off, okay, if you recall our last episode, we talked about, in fact, the core subject matter was Austin St. John's plans to release shirts with quotes by the German mustache guy on them. Now, he has opened his online store with his wise leader, where he calls it. You really should probably workshop that name. The shirts available at launch were ugly, but the good news, they did not include that guy. At the time it launched, it included plain, mostly red text on off-white backgrounds by figures like Anne Frank, and Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, and the shirts have only gotten uglier. They now include that same plain text with AI art, so yikes on top of yikes. Don't buy that.
Agree. Yeah, I agree with you. Like, I don't. I don't know how to best put it, but it's just what was his inspiration for this and why? And okay, I guess if you like history a whole lot, I guess, but the shirts are ugly. They're butt.
Yeah, the plain text shirts are still there. There are also shirts like Bible quotes, Bruce Lee quotes. Like, who asked for this?
Nobody. I'm going to answer it for you. Nobody. Even the history majors like myself go, what? But why? You don't pick the famous quotes for it. You pick the more ironic and funny quotes.
Well, then again, this is somebody. The best big business acumen he's shown is allegedly defrauding the government.
Yeah. Maybe we're giving him too much credit of, well, where did he come up with this idea? Oh, well, okay.
Now, in Tokusatsu news, we made it, everybody. The word Tokusatsu has been added to the Oxford English Dictionary. This is out of Tokusatsu Network. The March 24 update officially recognizes Tokusatsu as an English word borrowed from Japanese. It describes Tokusatsu as, quote, a genre of Japanese film or television entertainment characterized by the use of practical special effects, usually featuring giant monsters, transforming robots, and masked in costume superheroes.
I'm going to have to pick up a new dictionary.
I guess so. The update also includes words like isekai and mangaka, as well as foods like takoyaki, hibachi, and katsu curry. It overall codifies a mix of language and culture between English-speaking countries and Japan in a way that accurately reflects the way that we interact with Japanese culture. Like, for example, you hear the word anime everywhere.
What? According to people, anime is just cartoons.
And in other token news, we do have a couple release headlines to get out there. Discotech, actually just a few days ago, I should say, as we recorded this, it's Thursday, April 25th, they just announced a SDBD as a standard definition Blu-ray of the series Mobile Cop G-Bond, continuing their run of Space Sheriff shows, Metal Hero shows. Mobile Cop G-Bon will be released in July of 2024. It's a really cool old show. Here's the log line from Discotech. The wicked Dr. Giba and the monstrous forces of Bylon have silently infiltrated every aspect of human society. To what end? World domination, of course. Earth's only hope is a clueless detective who's always a no-show when it matters most. But in reality, this would-be bumbler is on a top-secret mission to put an end to Bylon's dastardly schemes as the mobile cop G-Bomb. With the aid of a young girl and an entirely fleet of computerized vehicles at his side, this next-generation robot detective is ready to take on anything the bad doctor can prescribe. It features designs actually by Keita Amamiya, who went on to do designs for Zeiram, Kamen Rider Zeo, and Gato. Well, he actually was the creator of Gato. The show was directed by Michio Konishi, with music by Chume Watanabe, who did music for Mazinger Z as well as Space Sheriff Gavan. And it's supposed to retail for $49.95. You may find it cheaper on the Crunchyroll store or on Amazon. And this is quite news in that we know actual things. We just know they're going to know actual things. Probably by the time that we record this, it'll be in our show notes where those details actually are. But a couple years ago, Media Blasters acquired the right to distribute Shin Kamen Rider Prologue, not to be confused with the movie Shin Kamen Rider from very recently, Kamen Rider Zeo, which I just mentioned, and Kamen Rider J. And they are going to have details on that in their weekly-ish Friday stream. So look for a link with details on that in our show notes. And you, even if you don't think you've seen Kamen Rider Zeo and Kamen Rider J, you probably have if you watch Masked Rider. They hacked and slashed a couple fights from those productions for early Masked Rider episodes. So if there are fights that look funkier than usual, that's what those were, especially those early episodes of Masked Rider. And now moving on to actual Power Rangers news. Boom Studios announced this week that the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic series is coming to an end with the one-shot Darkest Hour #1, written as always by Melissa Flores, with art by Simona Di Gianfelice and colorist Raul Angulo. It brings an end to the Darkest Hour arc and an end to this current series and the 8-year storyline stretching back to the dueling Mighty Morphin Power Rangers lines. The log line from Boom Studio says it all ends here. With Morphin Grid in peril, the people of Earth are left without the Power Rangers to protect them. The ultimate battle against Dark Spectre will play out with unexpected consequences, while an unlikely group of rogues, villains, and rangers make strange company. But even if they win, can they rebuild everything they've lost? And Boom makes clear they're going to have more to announce when it comes to Power Rangers. This isn't the total end of the line. They heavily hinted that they'll have something to say at San Diego Comic-Con, but if this is the end for now, then what a run.
Yeah, I mean, 8 years of fantastic stories, 3 main storytellers, introducing, in my opinion, probably
Well,
the most
5.
5.
Matt Groom did a few, and then Marguerite Bennett did some.
You're right. So it would be 5. But probably the second most popular Power Ranger media since the show itself. Introduced us to Lord Draken. Then we had a lot of crossovers and kind of just the ramifications of what it means to let them kind of do their own thing and kind of tell the hidden gems of Power Rangers and giving their blessing for stories like Lord Zedden, Zordon's old fights, a little bit of Dark Spectre, and I feel like they were really almost a mainstay. I mean, my wallet's going to be very happy that I don't have to buy a lot of the comics anymore. But
Yeah, well, not I mean, like, not for a little while, because this comic comes out in July, and that's also around the time San Diego Comic Con is, and they might have something, a few months later.
so that's where I am with it. Is I think the current run is going to end, I don't think they're stepping away from it entirely, though. I think they're just rebooting it for whatever is coming next.
I mean,
Whether that's a
comic
new,
series do like issue number ones all the time just
yeah, they
to
do.
juice sales.
Yeah, I mean, Power Rangers did it. Remember when they did that with what was it? The end of Necessary Evil. When they first introduced, I think it was Matt the Green Ranger, and they said it all ends here, and then it just turned out it was just splitting the comic into Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers. So it could be something like that, and they just want to give like
Well, I think they've been a
Melissa
little
like
more
a graceful
they've
exit.
been a little more emphatic this time.
Yeah. First off, I do want to say I'm happy for Melissa. Like,
Yeah.
she's been the main head writer for almost 2 years now. Um, I think she got her dream job of working at Marvel because I feel like the writing was starting to be on the wall when she was announcing all the titles that she was leading, including I think Spider Gwen. And it was like I think her time at Power Rangers is only going to be maybe like individual stories or something like that.
Yeah. Well, still, good for her. She got her flowers and she got a second swing at the franchise after leaving Saban and Hasbro before.
Correct. And in my opinion, I think she has written the second best storyline right behind Shattered Grid. Now it does mirror a lot of Shattered Grid with Darkest Hour. Um, because it's the big bad comes here. We gotta gather all the Power Rangers from across everywhere to fight the big bad. Um, but I do think that this isn't the last we see of this universe at all. And for all we know, they could just be taking a break and just realigning because we saw several tweets from Ryan like hinting like that he's coming back as the main writer or doing something very similar.
Mm, mm.
But again, though, what a ride it's been. What I think we're gonna look back at some point and go, man, we're gonna miss it. If
Yeah,
it is
and
really, really,
yeah,
really done, we're gonna miss it.
I don't think it's done. It's definitely coming back because I don't think we know the details of their deal with Hasbro the way we know the details of Enway's deals. There's something to say five times fast. Um, but
I,
I think it's
I
notable. Hmm?
oh, I was gonna say I just agree with you because the other half is unless look, and I'm just going to be blunt. Look, Ranger Academy is a complete miss, in my opinion. I understand what the audiences they're going for.
Right.
I don't think it's well written at all.
I haven't really been keeping up with it because I've got other things to do.
I mean, that shows how much you care about it as well. um, the idea is there, but just in my opinion, it's not my favorite, and I don't even think it's not directed at us. Well, that's
Yeah,
fine, but
that's right. That's right. Well, I think also I think we should probably it's a good time to think about all the things that not only in the show but like everything around the franchise that has been made better because of the work that was being done on the comics. Like Battle for the Grid, for example. Or
He-
the
Heroes of the
console
Grid.
game. Yeah, Heroes of the Grid, Battle for the sometimes get them mixed up. Um or the way that the Morphin Masters were really built up in the comics and then brought back into the show after not having been mentioned in canon since 1993, and they actually were really pivotal in creating the mythology around Dino Fury and Cosmic Fury.
Yeah. Or I would go as far as to say like how of a anchor it was even for the Power Rangers RPG at the moment where uh not only do they have the comic art, but they base a lot of the stuff on the comics, so you can run your original Ranger and everything in there, and just the story telling aspect of it.
Yeah, and the comics played a small role, but a role nevertheless in Hyperforce as well. Even though that ended up
Correct.
not getting a second season, getting kind of lost in the shuffle, I think regardless of what happens, I think the place of the comics, even if it's not, official blessed from up on high canon, the place of the comics in enriching the Power Rangers universe is indelible.
Exactly, and I would say again that there's going to be arcs people love. There's going to be arcs people thought could have used a lot of improvement on, but it did give us a little bit more of what people wanted. People wanted, well, how did we get the not just something original like Shattered Grid, but like Tiger Zord and Dragon Zord combined. They gave us that. What about we even got the side stuff with like Go Go Power Rangers and more of their lives as the teenager aspect. Um, again, it was a great run. I don't like I said, I stand by I don't think it's done. I think they're just soft resetting it again for what's next. But who knows? For all that we know, like maybe they are rebooting it because of all the plans and stuff they had, maybe to the wayside with everything that's gone on with like the main cast and everything, for example.
As far as the comics concerned, I think Jason is still on the table. Doesn't matter. Doesn't Jason and Tommy? It doesn't matter that one's gone and one's a scumbag.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm thinking more of the uh any type of reunions or what they are or weren't allowed to do or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what kind of rules that Hasbro does lay out for them. It's not like the ream of rules that Sega lays out for Sonic comics because they don't want to get sued.
Correct. And I
But
mean
that's a
to
whole
their
different
credit,
thing.
oh yeah. I mean to their credit though too, I mean they really did let them kind of do what they ever wanted in the whatever they excuse me, can't speak tonight. Whatever they wanted to do in the comics. I mean, it wasn't particularly dark, but it wasn't particularly like monster of the week episodes either.
Yeah, they've been able to tell a consistent storyline, at least from arc to arc, from writer to writer.
Yeah.
Um, Now we do have obviously the big news about Hasbro and Playmates, and we will get to that after this break. Stay tuned.
Hey everyone, I am Davis Green with the CFG, aka Con Freaks and Geeks, and I would like to tell you about my podcast, Pop Culture Gems. Throughout the year, I go to several anime, comic, and gaming conventions throughout the world, but I realized something throughout my travels. I barely talk to the special guests attending the shows. That's what Pop Culture Gems podcast is for. I get to interview anime, cartoon, video game voice actors, cosplayers, directors, publishers, and so much more in a more calm, relaxed environment. From geeky fandom to their careers itself, Pop Culture Gems podcast is a great place to get to know the special guests more deeper than what you would see at a convention. Listen and geek out with me and my special guest on the Pop Culture Gems podcast on all podcast services, or go to our main website, confreaksandgeeks.com, for the whole kit and caboodle. Y'all, take it easy.
I'd like to take a moment to tell you about Entertainment Earth. They carry tens of thousands of licensed products covering everything from Power Rangers to Pokemon, Ultraman to Iron Man. And for RangerCast listeners, you can get 10% off your order and free shipping on any order $79 and up. Just go to ee.toys/ranger. That's ee.toys/ranger. Or click the link in our show notes. RangerCast may receive a commission from your purchase. And we're back. So Hasbro on Monday, they kind of dropped a bomb on us. They announced a global licensing agreement, global meaning for their purposes everywhere but Asia, with Playmates toys to produce and distribute Power Rangers toys. They kind of thrown up their hands basically. We don't know how long the deal goes, but under it, Playmates will release a kid-targeted Mighty Morphin line in 2025. And going forward, Playmates will have the rights to release various action figures, blasters, plushies, role-play items, vehicles, and accessories. And there's all this, rah-rah press release talk. But Playmates, of course, has been in the toy business for ages. They hit it big in the 80s when they backed the Ninja Turtles cartoon. And by 90, just the Ninja Turtles line alone made up 60% of the action figures market. So, they've also got licenses for Star Trek, The Simpsons, Miraculous Ladybug. Hasbro will continue to own the other rights to the property and license things like comics, like we have all been talking about, and other merchandise. It's not clear what this means yet for the high end stuff that was being produced by like 3-0 and Super 7, but it means that Lightning Collection has been downgraded from being on pause to being dead and buried. And the release is also silent about the future of the television show. It talks up Once and Always in Cosmic Fury, but doesn't really acknowledge the existence of Jonathan Entwistle and Jenny Klein. Entwistle, you'll recall, was tapped to oversee all the film and television projects at Entertainment One, all the Power Rangers projects. Right now, he is directing that new Karate Kid movie. Jenny Klein was signed to a 2-year overall deal at Entertainment One 2 years ago. She would have been the showrunner on a new Power Rangers show to hit Netflix, but that's obviously not happening, and Entertainment One has been sold to Lionsgate. And in an investor call this week, this is actually courtesy No Pink Spandex, a transcript of an investor call wherein Hasbro CEO Chris Cox said the following in response to a question about this deal and why it happened. He said 2 years ago, we outlined where the selection criteria would be in terms of brands to move forward with. He said, basically, can we generate $50 million in revenue at a 10% operating profit? And can we grow to $100 million or more revenue at a 15% operating profit down the line? We've chosen the lines to on a line, I should say. We've chosen the lines to outsource that we don't think meet those thresholds. But another company with maybe a different cost structure or maybe a different set of expertise can still make a really nice business with, even if it was sub $50 million. We certainly will be driving cross-licensing, leveraging our brands for category expansion and new product opportunities like we're doing with Lego, like we're doing with Mattel, like we're doing with location-based entertainment. But I think Power Rangers is probably the last brand that we will outsource. So if you're hearing what he's saying there, he's saying that Power Rangers just was not profitable enough, and that kind of sticks the fork in the brand in the longer term.
You know, Rito, I could be petty, and I could easily say that the brand is dead, and that it's an unfortunate consequence of the comic ending, no TV show in sight, Hasbro bumbling the sell. I could be petty and say that, and I won't be. Who's kidding? I'm going to be absolutely petty to every person who said, but if we put out toys of the other seasons, people would buy them. This literally from an official CEO a shareholder saying, yes, it wasn't profitable. That's why we sell Mighty Morphin, guys, because it's not profitable. Now,
yeah, well, it's like that's the problem with Lightning Collection.
Correct. And we could say either way of did they market? I think they did an okay-ish marketing. Do we say like they didn't do enough for, say, Megazords or more adult collectors? We could also say that too. To me, there are many factors, but I will be petty and circle back around and say, yes, you have to have Mighty Morphin tied into some capacity or it will not sell. So that out of the way. I feel like so much for the Hasbro stuff changed because I think they lost their vision of what they wanted to do with the brand after COVID. I think COVID and I say this in the same way, I think Marvel lost their vision due to Chadwick Boseman's passing away, and they had no idea what to do during the pandemic. I feel the same way with Power Rangers after
I think just as big as COVID is Brian Goldner.
He was the one that passed away, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's why I use the example is I think he had a vision for it, and he wanted to make Hasbro into an entertainment business, and when he passed away, the current CEO does not want that, and he wants it to be a toy brand, and they had no idea what to do with Power Rangers at that point. I think some of it is a lack of a vision and not having at least at least a fan in there to guide them, or something kind of like the MCU had for the first 3 phases of, here's a direction you can go with, here's this, here's that. I think they didn't have that, so we kind of got stuck with it. I I don't even know where the reboot is at this point.
Well, James Zahn, the editor in chief of the Toy Book and senior editor of the Toy Insider and the Pop Insider, spoke to Josh Moore on the Substack Ranger Reader and talked about what happened here. And in terms of the issues around the Lightning Collection, he said, quote, adult collectors are a fickle bunch. What some might view as a QC issue, particularly on the paints app side, gets chalked up to being the nature of making toys in some cases. The biggest concern with many collector lines, and I'm talking about all the major licenses, is something called licensing. When this happens, you'll have multiple companies competing for attention, and dollars in multiple scales can go off the rails really quickly. One big problem with the Lightning Collection, in my opinion, is that when so many directions with products, it became hard to find for some collectors, and that's a turnoff. By being placed in the toy department, they were, in theory, targeting kids who may not have been familiar with the various incarnations of the Rangers that were being offered. Perhaps the biggest issue with the entire, quote, kid-ult movement in the past 3 to 5 years, that too many toy companies have been chasing an aging population instead of focusing on creating awesome toys for kids. There's a backlash in the kid-ult positioning right now, but the reality is that the kids of today need something to be nostalgic about 20 or 30 years from now. And goes on to say about the way that the brand is not performing as well in the toy aisle. He says, streaming changed the game. It's not like it was 30 years ago when Toys R Us couldn't keep the figures in stock. That was fueled by a hit series that kids had to tune in for. The new Power Rangers content might live in the always-on world of Netflix, but it's also competing with a multitude of other things that fall off the top 10 list very quickly. Mattel's recent kid-focused He-Man the Masters of the Universe is a similar example. While the old-school fans may have hated the animation style, it was designed for them, but it fell off so fast that the toys never had a chance to gain footing. Power Rangers wasn't in a great spot when Hasbro picked it up, as it was in a bit of limbo following the 2017 film, which supposedly lost the studio more than $70 million. And, I mean, there it is right there. It was a distressed brand that Haim Saban somehow bamboozled Hasbro into paying $500 million for.
You know what I feel like that entire, though, quote and context is missing, though, and I think it's kind of important. And I would say it's not just kind of important. I think it's very important. They want to blame streaming. They want to blame a lot of external reasons. And I can understand that to an extent, because the toy industry is not what it was prior to COVID. It wasn't what it was 10 years ago from that. Like, yes, kids are looking at TikTok. Kids are wanting to play video games. I get that. That's that. I do call BS on the quality control thing, because that's been a major issue about the Power Ranger Lightning figure collection for a long time now, where it started strong and then it just fell off. No, I'm going to say the same thing of, again, MCU comparison. How about you just write good content and it will sell itself? MCU is a great, like I said, I don't understand how. I lost my train of thought again, Rito. Man, I just have so much virtual. No, it's everyone's complaining. Why did it has the MCU losses? Well, it's an oversaturation of superheroes. No, we just want good stories. If you write good stories, it sells itself. How much marketing has X-Men 97 done? I'm gonna say very little ish. Like, it's enough if you're paying attention to it, but guess what? People are tuning in because it's really well written and it's a very good story, and the toys are flying off the shelves as a result. I feel Power Rangers is the same way. They had no direction of what they wanted to do with the brand, and they just kept it as a placeholder. If you write good stories like Shattered Grid, for example, where it's original and it's very, very much not just a love letter to the franchise, but also to it world builds, it gives good character arcs. It'll sell itself. There's a reason why Shattered Grid was one of the top selling comic books when it was released back, gosh, 6 years ago at this point.
But those comics were written for a different audience than the kind who go out and buy toys.
I don't think so. I think there's a I think it's the
Or
same
the kind who
audience
have their
for it.
parents grab the credit card. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the problem that they have, I think they're missing the point. I think there's two problems, and one of them he did say that I absolutely do agree with. They aren't making items for kids who have the disposable income from 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I think was what, Lightspeed and Time Force at this point. Yeah, they should probably be marketing that a little bit more versus Mighty Morphin. Mighty Morphin got its second wind because of the comic book. It wasn't for sure because of
Well,
the movie.
I think, like stepping back, like, given how little, like, the He-Man example, that's a great example. If there's not really a long enough period for toys for any given newer season to get cooking, then I'm not sure how anything besides MMPR stuff will sell.
Well, I think that's also too that they use the He-Man. I'm going to use the Thundercats example. People are tired of that Western cow tech animation. So when that Thundercats, I think it was Thundercats Roar, was released, it immediately made people walk away from the franchise, and then they blamed it was just the toy sales. No, it's because they're not writing good stories. You write a
Yeah.
good story, people will pay attention to it. And yes, again, I completely understand there is external factors that go into that, like new fans trying to get them in. I think the other thing that they're completely missing, and I don't see anybody talking about it, and I understand it the older I get, Rito. My birthday was recently, so I understand it more. Maybe I gained some wisdom. I don't know. But what they're not addressing to is Power Rangers is a 30-year-long franchise. There's not a real good jumping point to start at any point at this point. It has the same problem One Piece does, where you can't really jump in to One Piece. You really do have to start at chapter 1. Could you do that with Power Rangers on the later seasons? Sure. Samurai or Megaforce, whichever season you want to pick. But you do lose the significance of what it took to get to that point if you don't start from the very first season. You don't have to watch every episode, but you do miss the significance of it. And I feel like every company is missing that. Or enough where it's like the older fans and the younger fans can both enjoy it at the same time. There's not a launching point. I understand better, and I say all this because I understand a lot better now why Marvel and DC, for example, and I know I've referenced Marvel a lot tonight, but it's scary of how similar they are of looking in the same mirror. But I understand why they soft reboot about every 10 to 15 years because you have to have fans come in. And I understand they want to branch out, but that's where I will say they're not doing a good job of branching out and getting those younger fans. They're not doing a good job of retaining the older fans. They're not doing a good job getting just like the not middle age, but like your 15 to 20 old, like young adult. They aren't doing any of that. And I think some of that is they're afraid to try to branch out into the other franchises. The other part is I think no one knows what they want to do with it because I don't think Power Rangers knows what it wants to be. I think the biggest problem too is, and I hate saying it, but I think you'll agree with me. I think it's a little stagnant because how much work can you do if there's superheroes fighting an intergalactic threat every single season? Well, is there something else with it? I mean, Marvel can do it, DC can do it. Why can't Power Rangers? It took us 30 years just to get an explanation on the Morphin Masters.
Well, also to be fair, I think we're talking like the shows being vanquished to the Phantom Zone, banished, I should say. But to be fair, like I know, when I think of Playmates, I think of a particular kind of toy, but apparently this guy says that they've been doing great work, not just on Ninja Turtles, but on Voltron toys. And he posits that you could say that Voltron may have been auditioned for making Zords. They've been putting out a bunch of MonsterVerse toys, and they've been putting out their stuff at great price points. Whereas Hasbro last year put out a $60 Furby.
I want to add to that. So I think that's the next puzzle piece that's also not being discussed, Rito, is I don't think Hasbro really respected the brand. I'm not going to say that they didn't try, because they did, because Lightning Collection early on shows they did try. I think as it went on, though, they had no idea what they wanted to do. For example, we were all how many times screaming at Hasbro, not just with quality control, but how many times were we screaming at them to get a HasLab? Many a times, and it always went to Transformers. It always went to Star Wars. It went to Ghostbusters. When Power Rangers is literally right here going, we will pay you money to make Megazords. We will pay you money to make show accurate stuff, and they never did that. I never got the impression they respected the brand with in my opinion, the very failed attempt at the remastered collection with the Mighty Morphin Crew for like the 30th anniversary.
Yeah, there were a lot of things that they would start and stop, like the Zeo Megazord.
Or at this end, like the remastered figures where, we're not going to give Tommy his Dragon Shield because we want you to buy 2 toys. It's like, my dudes.
Yeah, and right, exactly. Where they kind of papered over the, I guess, prudent decision they made regarding the Red Ranger figure.
Correct. Well, we just wanted to represent the Green Candle. Bro, we get it. The Green Candle was a major storyline, but the Green Ranger has his power since then. Like, my God. But again,
and the green figure glowed in the dark. That's how they sold it.
Yeah, like, I get it. Just come out and say we want you to buy more toys, but they're not going to do that.
There was no consistency at the top. Like there were like product managers, product designers being just cycled out like mad. Like John Warden was only here for like a year. From Ghostbusters. Yes.
Well, and that's where I add this in too where I say they didn't respect the brand. I always circle back to that very infamous what's it called? That very infamous Power Ranger Fan First Friday where they combined it with Transformers, and Transformers basically got the full hour and Power Rangers got 12 minutes, and the big selling point was the piñata.
Yeah, and actually, correction, he was involved with Transformers before he was named global design lead on Power Rangers and Ghostbusters.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't think at some point, I don't think they took the brand seriously, and that's their own fault for setting up. But then again, I say the same thing about My Little Pony right now. So,
well, I don't take My Little Pony seriously either. So,
but what I mean is at some point, I feel like there was a tonal shift that they wanted to. And again, I'm going to use My Little Pony. They wanted to get away from G4. The problem is they did nothing to develop on G5, and G5's in a very, very lackluster state right now. It's been confirmed like their 3D show was canceled. Why did it get canceled? Well, it's because it took 2 years to get to the actual story, my dudes. Like, you can do better writing. Power Rangers to me is the same way. At some point, they pushed it to the side, and to me, that's where all your quality control problems started for it. And don't get me wrong, Hasbro, to their credit, Hasbro has done stuff that even Bandai didn't do. They gave us the entire Psycho Ranger team. They gave us morphers and helmets. They gave us power weapons, like actual good stuff. Don't get me wrong. But it always felt like with Hasbro, and this, Rito, this could always be something for its own episode on its own, but it always feels like every time they gave us something, there was always a catch. And I never felt like they just trusted the brand to do its own thing. I mean, I've said the same thing about the Megazords. The Megazords are great. I don't mind them doing Dino Megazord, but it wasn't that good compared to the previous releases. If you're going to sell it to adult market, it doesn't need to be part of this Zord Ascension project. Sell it as a collector's item. Dragon Zord wasn't that good. I think Astro Megaship was great, but yeah, I could vent and see many hours on what I think Hasbro did right, and even more so on what they did wrong. And I'm
I
not
think the
at
last
all
year I
surprised.
prefer late stage Bandai to how we've been treated this last year.
This last year, how about this last like 2 or 3 years?
I mean, it's like until at least Monday, like for a while, I was wondering if Hasbro even remembered they owned Power Rangers.
I bet Hasbro was saying the same thing of, "Do we own Power Rangers?" Question mark.
I
I
mean,
think,
Disney could probably forgot at one point, and they were airing it.
yeah. I'll throw this question at you, Rito. In a weird role reversal of me asking you the question, do you think Hasbro, and maybe this is Power Rangers as a whole, I don't want to say plateau. I don't believe that. But did they finally realize maybe we've capped and this is how much the brand is worth? It's worth $50 million or 50 billion. However, how many ever billions or millions it is, it's not going to make more money than this. Do you think we finally reached that point? And if so,
I think Mighty Morphin Power Rangers came at a perfect time with dinosaur themed heroes at a time when people were still like high off Jurassic Park. Um,
and robots, don't forget
right,
robots.
yeah, but I think that the conditions that allowed Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to take over the toy aisle, take over Toys R Us, and take over the zeitgeist. I think that those conditions are not possible to replicate. I think I don't know off the top of my head what Power Rangers toy sales have looked like year by year. I don't think that's something that
Oh, I
they
don't
break
either.
down specifically. But I think in terms of sentiment, I think fan sentiment probably reached a high point in Beast Morphers.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
Hasbro's engagement with the property peaked around Beast Morphers, which was oddly their first series fully at the wheel, and it was all downhill from there. And
I think
there was personnel changes, there were layoffs, and when COVID hit, they decided to focus on what are better money makers for them, or what are more proven money makers for them. Uh, Transformers, GI Joe, those being properties that they created and own, as well as licensed properties from which they also make a lot of money, like Disney, Marvel, Star Wars. And I think this validates a sense that I had when Hasbro bought the property, worried that I had. Whereas with Saban and Bandai America, Power Rangers was job number one for each of them. With Hasbro, it became
a
a
chore.
cog in the machine that was therefore expendable.
I think I want to add this into, again, I want to compare it because I feel like kids reading it or kids watching it, 20 years later, they have the disposable income. You have to evolve the brand as it goes. Sure, you can still have like its roots. Using the MCU as an example, it evolved because they cleaned up a lot of the mistakes that the comics made and was able to not only make it serviceable, but it was an enjoy to watch. It was a little rough around the edges at first, but the brand was able to evolve and grow and capture the audience for everybody. I don't think they tried that well enough with the 2017 film, and I think it was doomed to its fate of this is a younger kid brand at this point. You have your dedicated fans, obviously. You have your older fans, but I think it's like a tale of two sides of if they would have taken it seriously, you could have had an MCU, but instead this is where we're at now 7 years later, and people are wondering, is this brand even getting a show by 2025 at this point? I mean, I think we're even at that point of what is the reboot even going to be live action anymore? I think it's almost, I think some of that too is that of another thing you mentioned from it, and I'll throw this in too, of I think the fans do play a part in that because they were unable to accept some change that would have benefited the show, such as an animated series. I think.
Well, they
As
can't do an animated series though.
why can't they?
Toy.
Yeah, but if you would have worked with Toy, I don't think they would have cared. I think there's a lot more stock being put into they can't versus I don't think they tried. Let's say it was all accepted. Okay, let's just say then Toei, for sake of argument, did accept it. The problem is a lot of the fans. I'm not gonna even say a lot of the fans. I'll say the vocal fans didn't want an animated series, and I think that did hurt it as well, because it took out some of the options that they could have done. Because you could have gotten, yes, you could have gotten a Thundercats Roar scenario, but you also could have gotten a Teen Titan too from it, and evolve the brand to the next step at that point. And it's something just to throw out there because I keep forgetting it and I keep remembering it. I also think too Power Rangers didn't know what tone it wanted as well, where we had that very serious, but yeah, I would say
Yeah,
young
well,
adult
also I
tone.
wonder, what kind of power Heim had, because he was kept on as consultant for a couple years, and you could tell sometimes.
Oh yeah, I mean, how many times have we gotten tired of the duo slapstick comedy jokes that basically ruin is not the word I'm looking for, or interrupt, but just um emotional whiplash in episode because they had to get their 2 minutes of a gag in, which wasn't even that funny. It was very cringy. So I mean, we I mean, how much more do we want to go on it? Because I think Hasbro, I think the heart was there in the very beginning, but the moment it's, and I'm quoting you, when it became a cog in the machine, it just became a day-to-day number, and we were never going to get anything from the brand at that point. It was doomed to. I hope the comic is good, and at least we get deck builder and RPG from it, and what's it called? Heroes of the Grid, and um, what's the video game? At least we have that.
For as long as we do.
Yeah.
Now, I guess, there is only as one question to wrap this up with. Do you think we will see a new Power Rangers show ever again?
Oh yes, it's inevitable. Stuff happens in 20-year cycles. Absolutely, we will get something. I think the bigger question is, are we going to see it before 2030?
Well, yeah,
I,
I don't know. I think
See,
I
and
think
if that's the funny part. You were about to say no, and then you're like, "Well, I don't know."
I think I'm hopeful that we'll see something again. I'm hopeful that this is the end of the road. I just don't know how we get there if you have the CEO out there saying that
It's not profitable.
that's not profitable, despite all the we tried nothing and we're out of ideas.
I'm off.
Yeah,
But it,
so I just I think
well,
that
and here,
not having a show is going to be bad. Like, the longer you don't have a show, the less likely it becomes that you do have a show.
and it also depends too. Again, if they do animated or if they do,
They're not going to
live.
do animated Power. I really hope they don't, because the magic of Power Rangers is its live action.
No, well, again, I'm just using that as an example. But if they, depending on the medium, it could, because let's be honest, they're not getting something by 2024. They're not getting something by, they could, if they started today, they could get maybe something by 2025. I realistically, my gut would say 2027 is when you're going to get your next show, if that happens.
Yeah, well,
If
I
they're
think if there's
serious
going to be
about
a
it.
Power Rangers show, there needs to be a studio interested in making one and licensing it from Hasbro.
Yeah.
Because
And
that's what
that's
they do now.
well, and that's the flip side of it too. And that's something we haven't even discussed is live action wise. They moved away from New Zealand because I think wasn't it the filming benefits just were
No,
not
they moved away
worthwhile
from New
anymore.
Zealand because the show was done.
Oh, I thought it was also too like the tax benefits and everything just were
No, they just
not
closed up
beneficial.
shop.
Which I mean, there's plenty of advantages locally if you just look around in states and everything. New Zealand's
I
cheap,
think
sure,
I think
but
there were rumors that if the end whistle thing ever got off the ground, they would have shot in Canada. But it's all academic now, and all those helmets and props, if they still exist, are sitting in a warehouse in Los Angeles or something.
yeah, and I mean, I can attest that there's places that are really pushing for film industry at the moment. Obviously, you still have your Georgia area. I know here in Oklahoma, they're really pushing for film, and that would be a lot cheaper for them. It wouldn't necessarily be somewhere they want to film because of scenery and everything versus like New Zealand, but you still have that option and everything. I think that's also another factor though too is the cost with it being in New Zealand and everything at that point. 2027 would be the earliest, and that's a rough thing to say, but I
Yeah,
mean,
well, I just don't
that's
think that
where
it's
we're at.
happening. I just don't think that it's happening anytime soon. I think that if it were happening anytime soon, it wouldn't happen. Like I think Hasbro selling Entertainment One as a sign that they don't see themselves making entertainment anytime soon, or not
Yeah.
themselves anyway. I mean, they're moving to this licensing model where they're doing Clue with Sony, they're doing Monopoly with uh with
Can I
Lionsgate.
say something
Yeah,
that I do find ironic, and maybe it's just because it's my own self humor. I do find it funny that the toy company has to outsource their toy because they have no idea what to do with it.
yeah. It's like like I think in the show notes, Hasbro ostensibly a toy company.
Yeah, I find that the irony behind that. It's like just so funny to me. That just shows like how incompetent they were with the brand.
Mm. Yeah. Well, anyway, we can go on and on, but technically, we do still have episodes of the Cosmic Fury to discuss, so we will pick up where we left off with those some other time. It's funny, for a dead franchise, we sure do have a lot of news to talk about.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair too, we still do have the comic and everything. It's
We
only
do.
April and we still have May, June, July, 3 months of comic to see what's going to happen next. We still have Morphicon coming up, which who knows, maybe there's going to be surprises at Morphicon.
Yeah.
That's where I have hope that's my bingo. That's kind of my rundown list. Okay, this is what they're saying. Let's see what the comic says at San Diego. Okay, if they don't say anything, let's say Morphicon. If nothing is said at Morphicon, then yeah, I would say we're already at the
They're
red
not going to
alert.
say anything about Morphicon.
No, I mean in the more of if there was something for it where they announce a new show or here's our first look, that would be the opportunity to do so. We're at red alert, but now it's like if not, be pushing the oh god button at this point. Like
All
worst
right.
case scenario.
Well, if that happens, the only time between now and our next episode, you'll hear about on a Ranger Cast. Have a great one, everybody. If you like what you just heard, find us at rangercast.net or look us up in your favorite podcast app. Reach out to us on Twitter or leave a voicemail on our website. The opening theme is by Daniel Park. The ending theme is by me. RangerCast is distributed under Creative Commons license. Attribute and share alike.